Hi, everybody, and welcome to the second Women in Business podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. My guest is Carolyn Cagle from Strikke Embroidery, and we're going to have such a great conversation because Carolyn and I can go for about an hour just talking about, leaves or the weather or something. So this is going to be amazing. So a few things that I wanted to bring in first. If you are looking for a place to watch this, you can see it in the Women and Business podcast page, or you can see it in the Women in Garment Decoration group on Facebook. And if you are a member of the garment decoration industry and you haven't joined the Women in Garment Decoration group yet, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do that. Now, so we don't waste a lot of time here, I want to introduce Carolyn, and then I'll bring her in and we'll start talking. Now, because I'm cheesy, I'm going to hold this up and read it. So just, I guess, deal with that. Carolyn Cagle's family has been in the embroidery business for over 46 years. She has been embroidering for 20 years and had her own manufacturing company making custom mittens in Minnesota for the Midwest and Canada. She has been focusing over the past 10 years on embroidering specialty work and custom story coats. Side note, if you haven't seen her story coats and all her other work, geez, go look at her Facebook page because it is amazing. And I will put that Facebook page up right now so you can see it. She loves working with designers and digitizers, making their designs come to life on fabric. She is currently working on her own custom art incorporating sublimation pens, embroidery, and photographs. Carolyn loves to be creative as often as she can and wants to remind everyone to keep pushing the boundaries. So let me turn this off and we'll bring Carolyn in here. Hi, Carolyn. Thanks for being with us.
I feel like they always get some music. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, there should be something. We should have an Ed McMahon or something, shouldn't we?
Really?
Oh, geez. Well, the first thing that I want to talk about, because I think it's really interesting, is you're basically a second generation embroiderer because your mother started the original company.
Yes, my mom started the business.
And the original company, which is still around, is His Dolls, correct?
No.
Oh, I thought it was.
My mother started her business, and it was called Viking Lettering.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was Viking Lettering, and she had a giant. They still have it. It's kind of fun. They have a giant. She had this giant Viking head painted for the side of the building.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, when they moved into the house that they bought, but she worked in the basement for years and years and years. So my whole life, I listened to the sound of underneath our feet.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, because she was a chain stitch embroiderer.
Okay, so that's a different machine than just a standard embroidery machine, correct? Or not?
Yes, that's a chain stitch embroidery is a whole different field. It takes a whole different craft. It takes a whole different. It's old school. It's what you saw. Yeah, it's old school. Yeah, it's way different. She hand drew everything.
Oh my God! Now, when did she start this?
I was 7, and I was 7, and I'm 59. So when she went to school, she started at 7.
So let's try and do the math. What year were you born, Carolyn?
I'm always 1 year younger than the year, 1961.
Okay, so she started it in 68.
Yeah.
A year before I was born.
Yeah. That's a long time.
Yeah, that is a long time. Okay, so the original was Viking Lettering.
Yep, and then my dad, he went into making trophies.
Right.
And then it was called His Old Trophy. So they had 2 separate businesses.
Okay.
My dad had his space. Wait, I'm in the camera now. His space, and my mom had business at home. And then they just my dad kept moving his business larger and larger. And then they saw a house for sale and they bought the house. And that was in 1977.
Wow.
1977. And then they added footage onto that house. And we lived upstairs. We were like Norwegian farmers. We lived above our business
You lived above the store.
No. And you never got off of work.
Well, I was gonna say, did you just grow up like working in the business? Is that what what you guys did?
Yes. When you were 8 or 9 years old, we were like indentured servitude. And in order to watch TV,
child labor.
In order to watch TV, she would bring up all these jackets. And when you did the chain stitch, it would have a leader thread on the top and one on the bottom. Well, the one on the top was left. You'd have to put it so when they came with those they were called handicap needles where you could just slide the thread through. Anyway, so you had to sit there while you were watching TV and poke a thread through. So you poked them all through, and then you went through and you flipped all the jackets and you tied them double knot, not just one knot. You had to do double knot because she did not want that stuff coming up. Because if one came up, it would go.
Oh yeah, then it would pull out the whole design.
Yeah. So the only way we could watch TV was pull threads. So it was called pulling threads. So you were able to sit on your butt and watch TV if you pulled.
As long as you were pulling the threads.
Yeah, or punch designs. Okay. Punch designs because they used to be done on like a paper, and she would. Oh,
I always think this is fascinating.
Yeah, she would draw it by hand with a pencil.
Right.
And then we would take a great big stick pin, like a hat pin, and it would be on styrofoam, and you would sit there, and every like quarter inch, you would punch a hole all along this pattern. So we would punch patterns once we got older because we could see that and stay within the line. So we were good colorers, man.
I bet. I bet you guys were like, so you were basically like destined to do this almost.
Yeah, actually, I went to graphic design school so that I could learn screen printing. But my brother went into when he went to college. He started screen printing in the business, and so it was like, yay! I didn't have to do that. He's 2 years behind me, so he went to St. Cloud State and got a graphics degree, and I went to graphic design school, but I ended up in the field of the print industry. I went in to be a typesetter, and once I got into typesetting, I just traveled through the print industry until I went into advertising and working with slide presentations.
Okay. Yeah. I have one comment I want to put up here because I just want to answer this question real quick. So can this be watched on YouTube? And Facebook user, if you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, we'll be able to see who you are. Because right now all it says is Facebook user. So, and the answer to the question is yes, the next one. And there is a channel where all these will be posted. So you can see them after the fact. But because I just set up the page, StreamYard would not let me stream this particular episode to Facebook or to YouTube. The next ones, we will be able to do that. Okay. So hopefully that answers the question. And Sandy Jo says hello. Let's have a few hellos here. Hi, Sandy Jo and Tanya. Hi, Tanya. And Tanya's going to be brave enough to do this next week. So I'm very excited. But anyway. So sorry, little bit of, so your brother took graphic design. You went to school or your brother learned how to screen print. You went to school for graphic design.
Yes.
And then what caused you to decide to go and make mittens?
Oh, okay. Well, what happened was I was in the ad industry, and I had got married and had children. And in the ad industry, things like waking you up at 3 o'clock in the morning to tell you that the seed on the sesame seed bun for the Burger King presentation needed to be fixed right away because it was falling off, and they were going to reshoot the whole thing. And I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't keep up with that, and I was working part-time downtown Minneapolis. So I went to work for a small print shop, and my parents' place was down the road, and I would park there and then walk to their place. This was before my brother bought the business, and I could see that they were trying to retire and struggling. So I went in and started helping with the office. And then my brother purchased the business from my parents and taught me how to do, because I had obviously graphic design background and print industry. I went into the embroidery. And so because it was basically replacing one piece of machinery with a different piece of machinery, but incorporating the same principles and kind of software, Corel Draw and that. And so then we started out, I learned on a single head original, one of those old Melcos. Yeah, I did that. And so I put all the names on the jackets and stuff and just stayed with the business. 12 years. But when I came up with a mitten, it's a fleece mitten with a cuff with embroidery on the
Yeah.
top. Yeah. So anyways, when I came up with that, I decided that once I got an order from the Minnesota Wild and I needed to make, I think it was 3,000 pair of mittens.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, I said to my husband, I said, I think it's time to just do this, on my own. And so
Right.
I set up my own shop and I opened up a retail space because I didn't have space for it in the house. And I micromanaged 10 contract sewers and I had 2 salesmen at one time and then I went down to 1.
Oh my goodness.
You can still see Ron at the DAC shows. He's always, if you ask him, he's still got the mittens probably. And he'll go, you want to buy some? I can get her to do it. I can.
I can get her to do mittens.
Right. But I did that for a long time and I just couldn't do a retail and do that. So,
Right.
And rent was it was 2008 and the economy took a kind of
took a nosedive.
So my husband made me a beautiful spot here in our home. And so I love working here.
That's great.
Yeah. Yep. So that's where I'm at.
Wow. Okay. So the question I have to ask though, because I know this is something that people wonder about is, did somebody approach you and say, I want you to make mittens? Did you go out and find people who wanted you to make mittens? How did the Minnesota Wild come to you and go,
well, that was Ron's account. Ron would sell them the pants that have, you've seen their nylon with the names knitted in the panel.
Sure.
So I was kind of, excuse the expression, I was digging around with this mitten and I had it at the shop and it was laying on the table. And the first salesman I had was one of the Butwin brothers. I don't know, some of the people haven't been in the industry as long as us. Now it's called JDS or JBS. And Jack Butwin's brother, he was a salesman for Butwin, which did the original baseball jacket. He saw it. He said, do you sell these? And I said, no, I've been just messing around with it. He goes, I could sell this. So he started selling them. And then all of a sudden I started getting orders. And then Ron came in because Ron will bring in all the samples and we would buy, he still does buy product from him. He said, what are you doing with this? And I said, I'm trying to sell it. He goes, I can sell that. So he did. He sold, I think I sold 10,000 pairs. I had all the Shields department stores and I had all these little private shops that had them.
Right.
And then I had a knitting machine where I made the ear flap caps. And that was, I sat and did that for like 2 months. And I told my husband, I said, I hate this. I hate it with a passion because you're trapped there for 45 minutes. Each hat took 45 minutes. Oh. And you'd have to watch it. Whereas I couldn't. And so my brain would be up here chasing leaves and I'd be like, ugh. So, and it was a very, very, very lucrative endeavor. So the best knitter that I had, I sold her my machine. And at that time she ran 4 machines, keeping all of our customers busy.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Mm-hmm. So you had a pretty big operation for a while. If you had 10 contract sewers and then the knitters and the salespeople and wow.
I used to be a brunette. I was a brunette.
You used to be a brunette and all the stress. Well, you said something interesting when you were talking about this, and I want to follow up on this, but I just want to say hi to a few people because there's no good place to put comments in here. So hi, Jane. Thank you for being with us. Lisa, nice. You followed in the family business. Great history. And our Facebook user is Cindy Knight King. She's watching from her embroidery room. Thank you for watching, Cindy. We really appreciate it. But one of the things that you said that I thought was interesting, because you don't strike me as this sort of person. So you said you micromanaged all the people who were making the mittens. You had contract sewers or whatever that were making the mittens. Were you really like, it's got to be this way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because there was no way I wanted to have anything returned because a pair of mittens took 8 touches, 8, until it was finished. Oh. And if I got it back, because I do all the cutting and I would do the embroidery. I was contracting out a lot of embroidery because it just got too much for, for me. But I was cutting, and then they had the liners, the outside, the embroidery, the cuff. And so they would come and they would get a box and they would get a minimum of 24 pair. And I would say to them, they have to have these back in 7 days. And then when they came back, they would first get a test for sewing. If they came back and I would stick my hand in, because every single one had to be put on and paired and tagged. And so if I found that there was a hole in the thumb or whatever, there's no way that I had time to sit down, take that cuff off, sit down, research the whole damn thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
So their quality control was something that really was tightly held. The flip side of that is I can go into, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but I can go into a thrift shop around here and I can still see my mittens that I know when that account went through, like it might have been for Matamidi or it might have been for there or something, and they're still perfectly fine. And the guy that taught me how to manufacture, he said, "You make them too nice. There's no reason."
No, you don't have any return because the mittens never wear out.
I could probably say in the from 2008 until 2018, I had 2 pairs returned. To be repaired. 2
pairs returned in all that time? Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Now, if they threw away, they didn't tell me, but they came back to me and they were fixed.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you ran that business for 10 years, give or take.
Yeah.
And then, we have more comments I want to throw in. Wendy Rossman, great history. I love the history too. I think the history, I mean, the fact that you've seen so much of this and how, I mean, punch embroidery and all that kind of stuff. And those stories are always really neat to me because I have no concept of that, except it looks really labor intensive. And Martha says hello.
Hello. I feel like I have my husband telling the kids the story of, going to school uphill both ways in the snow.
Right.
Shoe.
Yeah.
And I had to share it.
Snowing and I had to climb a mountain and But okay, so we get to 2018 and you decide I don't want to make mittens anymore. I want to do something else.
Yes, I couldn't make another widget. I just couldn't make another widget. And
so
my first
or
what's that?
So was it lack of being able to be creative or just what you were doing had such a process to it? You wanted to be a little freer or?
It was physically exhausting.
Well, I imagine that too.
It was emotionally draining because I didn't get any satisfaction out of it anymore.
Okay, fair enough.
And I couldn't get sewers. I couldn't get sewers that wanted to stick with it. And honestly, my product, because it was all handmade here in the United States, it was too expensive for people. They didn't want to invest in it.
Okay.
The last straw was I made it with the mittens all the way to the table of the United States Olympics. I
remember that.
I called the guy personally. I don't know how I stumbled across his name, and I sent him the mittens, and I spent a good 2 months because they wanted to place an order, and I was so disheartened when they told me what they would pay. And I said, you still want to pay a Chinese price and get American dollars, but you have to have it made in the US. And I can't.
Yeah, I can't do it.
I can't do it. I can't risk making 30 cents on a pair, but you're willing to risk making, $8 on a pair.
Right.
So that was kind of like my moment of zen, like we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. It honestly just took a.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's sad too that there are a lot of organizations that I actually did a seminar on this for DAX, and that's one of the things I talked about was there's a lot of organizations that say they want made in America, but when they have to pony up the dollars for it, it doesn't necessarily translate. They'll say it all day, but they won't put their money where their convictions are, so to speak.
Well, the profit margin is smaller for them, and they don't care about the manufacturer.
Right. Yeah. And they probably tried to sell you some crap like, oh, it'll be great exposure for you.
They did say that. You will have so much advertising and everybody in the world will know you. And and I was like, yeah, well, that's great, but I'll be living in a shoebox.
Yes.
And yes, it might have done that. Yes, that is one thing I could have in my lifetime of decisions gone a different way, and my life might be different now. But in the next breath, then I would have probably been an emotional wreck because I would probably have to go back to someplace and borrow $500,000, and rather than just making mittens, now I'm making everything in order to,
Right. Right.
And I don't think emotionally I was ready to do that.
And I can understand that. Sorry, I was just reading Sandy Joe's comment here. I love that. You want to pay a Chinese price, but quality of made in America. I deal with that a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of people do, and it's really sad because, people talk a lot, and a lot of decorators are convinced that made in America is a really important thing. But if you look at the numbers versus people who talk about it versus people who will actually do it, the difference is pretty stark. So anyway, so mittens went away, and you had to come up with what to do next. And what you came up with was Strikke Embroidery. And tell me I pronounced that right.
It is. It's been Strikke Knits Embroidery, but I changed it down. I've shortened it to the Strikke Embroidery because then people can focus more on the embroidery.
Right. And there's your Facebook page.
And so the word strikke is actually pronounced strikke, which is Norwegian for knit. And that's
where, okay. I had, for the longest time, I was calling it strikke.
Yeah.
Which every time I said that, you would kind of look at me like, seriously?
It's okay. It's okay. Every one of our family businesses had a Scandinavian name. My mom's was Viking lettering.
Right.
My dad was obviously his dog, which is he was 100% Norwegian. And then my brother's was Das Designs. So I thought I'll follow in the footsteps of the Scandinavian name, and so I chose that. So
you chose that. And you decided to start playing with what you so picturesquely call art barf. which is a technical term, but
anything that comes out of here is quality art. But when I'm messing with it in here, it's art barf.
Well, because I've said it multiple times in multiple places, that I'm a huge fan of your work because I think that you do, amazing, beautiful stuff. You can see it on
the help of others' designs.
Yeah. Well, yes, but the creative work that you do, if you go look on the Enmark Facebook page, we've put up a lot of stuff that Carolyn has done. You can also certainly see it. I'll put up her Facebook page again because I think it's definitely worth going to take a look to see what she's done. I have certain favorites that I really love. The bee dress, obviously, is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And but what I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, okay, so you decide mittens are done. And you basically go in a whole new direction almost. So how did you know how to do it? And that's a really open-ended question. But okay, so you'd seen your mother work her business, but your business wasn't going to be quite the same.
Right.
So and obviously you couldn't really cannibalize from the family business for clients.
No, I've always created and generated my own clients. Okay. And my clients, I have what I call the widget work. I have my corporate client because there's a light on over my head for a reason. So so that pays the bills. But it says on my Facebook, the wheels in my head are always turning. And when I look at things, I don't see things as per se what they are. And all of a sudden I started buying these coats and it kind of incorporated into my textile art. How many pieces of textile art can a person create and have them hanging on your walls and put them in shows? And that was okay, I did that. So then I stepped into the coats because I thought, oh, this is cool. Because I kept seeing these coats and I was seeing what they were supposed to be. I would see them and there'd be a story to it. Now,
are we talking like I was at the department store, I saw a coat, or is this mostly thrift store coats? Or
I bought on all spectrums, but I really like to hunt at a thrift shop or Goodwill, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Because people are clueless as to what they're giving away. And think of it this way. I mean, the coat you've seen from my mother with the Little Red Riding Hood story on it.
Yeah.
That was a made in America 100% wool coat that I paid $5 for. And
oh my goodness.
It wasn't about the price, it's the canvas. Like some people,
Sure.
walk around and they go, oh, I like that 4x8 canvas. For me, my canvas is the coat or the dress.
Or like you put on Facebook the other day, the chair that you found by the side of the road.
Yes, I'm that person. I have a van for a reason. And there's just no way to discreetly stop on the side of the road and hope that nobody thinks that I'm homeless. And
you're like, look, my king has a chair.
Maybe they're thinking, the lady with the blue band, she'll pick up anything. So
But what I love is that you see the possibility in these things. So it's kind of found art in a way, because that's something. See, I have like zero visual artistic talent. So people who can look at something and see what it could be always fascinate me, because my brain does not work that way. So I don't understand how you can look at a coat and go, okay, I can see that as a Little Red Riding Hood coat, or I can see that with a pink coat with the flowers on it, or a yellow dress with the bees, or whatever. I don't know if you can describe that process, but it fascinates me. Is it just like it comes into your head, or you have to look at it for a while, or?
Sometimes there'll be things that'll sit around for a while, and I have multiple like mannequins, and I'll put it on there, and it'll be amongst me, and then I will see something, and I don't always choose for it. Okay, so this is the process. When I'm in, it's never on a hunt. If you go on a hunt, you will be dissatisfied. You must discover it.
Okay, so you never go out purposely like, I want to make a X.
No, you can't. I can't do that.
Okay.
I can't do that.
So you just have to it really has to be found.
It has to be found, and it literally appears finished in my head.
Wow.
So, like when people call me and say, "Hey, Carolyn, I'm trying to, paint a room or whatever," I go there and I look and I go, "What color are you thinking?" And they tell me, and then I look and I go, "It needs to be this color blue," because I see things finished in my head. Now, the process of getting from the beginning to the end always changes, and through multiple years, I have learned not to focus on the absolute of it, because generally a project I will start that I've seen in my head it's like opening a book and you're discovering it as it goes, and it goes on a different tangent.
Sure.
Or it might be like what do I call them? Happy accident. Where you're so hell bent on getting it perfect, and then the ultimate happens, and you're like, shit, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, and I look at those as gifts.
Okay, that makes sense,
because that forces me to not take what I'm doing for granted ever.
Okay.
And it's a three-dimensional thinking for me. When you show me this cup, when somebody brings me something.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, I want to put, I want to make it look like a shoe or whatever. When they're describing it, I'm making it. It's in my head. I see it done.
Wow.
And I thought everybody had that. That was unusual to me, because I thought everybody had that. I thought everybody walked around with that gift, so I had a hard time communicating sometimes with people, because I would just look at them like, well, you just take and you sew this on here, and
Yeah, and they don't. Yeah, see, I would be very frustrating for you, because I have none of that, and you go, but you just do that, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, well,
I don't see it.
Right, and so basically, when a customer comes to me with something that they want me to create or work on, I say to them, my goal is to climb inside your head and see your picture. So you describe what you're what you're telling, what you want, what is your goal at the end of it. Draw a picture. I found it very helpful for customers to bring me, just like, when you're going to an interior designer and they say, I want you to
Sure.
tear out things from a magazine. I
Sure.
find it very helpful to give people that kind of direction too, because I get to say, what do you like?
Well, that would be, if I was working with you, I think that's where I would have the issue is you would tell me, what do you want? And I could give you like 5,000 words on what I wanted, but none of them would be useful because my brain doesn't work that way.
No, but you're analytical, so you know what you have already, if you're out on a hunt and on a mission. And when I work with a lot of people that are on your end of the spectrum, as to, no, they're linear people. I married one. I married that guy. So we make a nice pair. But
okay.
But if you were to give me a list and I'd say, write down everything that you're thinking of and what you want. And I go, okay. And then you hand me the paper and I go, now I want you to take 10 of those things that are the most important to you. And then
okay.
It's a process of elimination to find out really what a person's getting towards.
So was it a process also of learning how to do that? Because you had to learn, you had to learn that it's always funny to me because I had the same thing. I thought for years that everybody thought in words. I thought everybody like everybody could do what I can do. And most people can't.
Right.
So it was a shock to me too. So it's kind of, you have to, but when you're in a customer facing space, you have to learn how to translate their version into what you can do. Right. So was that kind of a trial and error thing for you where you just had to kind of suss out what worked the best?
Yeah. But I have to say that I've been lucky because I inherited my dad's personality. And so I am a salesperson by nature. And so so I can steer people towards something that's going to work without, getting not pushing their dream.
Right.
But and steer them towards what's going to work best for them without saying, well, that's, I've met people where, my husband's that guy. I walk out and I go, this is what I want. And I want 4 shelves in it. And he goes, hey, I can't do that. And I go, okay, what do you think about that? And then 2 days later, he comes back and he goes, all right, so I figured this out. so that's a lot of it in learning how another person interacts and talks.
Okay.
So you have different personalities. And the key is when my customer comes in the door, I have to learn which personality they are. Are they the person that is absolute, where they, like they've got the ruler, the guy that comes in that's the machinist, he's got the ruler, he's got the pocket protector, his truck is so clean you could eat dinner off of it.
Right.
And then you have the next guy who is a roofer or a painter, and he doesn't understand why it costs this much money for something. And then I say to him, well, are you going to put tar shingles on, or are you going to put, polymer shingles? And then when you have to learn each person's language. In the creative end of it, when I'm creating something really special for creative people, they're a little harder to work with because they have a vision in their head of the finished product and they're so excited about it. So I have to put my spin on it in order to make it work.
Right. So you have to translate their vision.
Exactly.
Right.
And then I have quite a few customers that I love, where they walk in and they throw it on the table and they go, have at that.
So are those sorts of customers more a function of they've worked with you long enough that they trust that you're going to come up with something, or they're just like, crap, I don't know, you're the expert, which I think is also a function of you presenting yourself that way.
Yes. Yeah, that comes from, I know what to do with it and it's going to look good and they're going to be really happy. And they've been consistently, and that's how I get other customers. They will send people. I don't really advertise all that much anymore because my customer will send somebody. They'll say, oh, I had this done and I'm not happy with it. It doesn't, it just doesn't, I don't feel like it's me. And they go, oh, it's Carolyn. And then let her do what she wants. And I just had a guy in 2 weeks ago that said that. Mike sent me and he said, here's my jacket, do what you want.
Here's my jacket. Do you want? I like this comment from Wendy. Love how you describe different types of customers and speaking their language. Very helpful, which I think it is. But I also like, and I want to make sure that we're getting this point out there, that the function of the customers coming to you and saying, do what you want and recommending you is because you've consistently done good work. Now, do you do a lot of, hey, if you liked what I did, refer me? Or is this just a kind of spontaneous thing that's sort of happening?
No, I do tell them.
You keep that pipeline full.
Right. And I do have a card that it's postcards. I have them made and they have some of my work on there. And on the front of it, it says, thank you for your order. Does it say? It says, thank you for your order. If you're happy with it, if you're as happy with it as if I was creating it for you, please share my work. I want you people to know, though, that I've had some real disasters. I've had some real disasters.
I mean, who hasn't? That's like...
It's like, oh, shit. that didn't work. And,
I think everybody's had that.
Yeah, and I've also learned that because I've tried to do it honestly in the industry is go work for somebody else, and I don't translate well working with other people. I don't know. It kind of closes off my freeform creativity, and I get anxious, and my expectations of myself are too high, and then when I did go to work for somebody else. It was not a pretty sight, and I was shocked. Because I spent so many years running embroidery shops and that. But yeah, then I was.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between. I mean, that was one of the things before I embarked on what I'm currently doing that I was kind of worried about, because my job that I had previously, I kind of did what I wanted. I mean, nominally I had a boss, but how I did what I did and the decisions I made, I just did stuff. And so I thought, going to another company, which I don't foresee happening now, but, and having somebody who wanted more of a say, I was like, ooh, no, I can't. I can't.
And I even went to the family business back to the family business. Well, the girl that I trained when I left years ago, she was on maternity leave, and it was 2 weeks into it, and I was like, oh hell no. It's like, no.
Once you get used to having your own space and your own autonomy, it's really hard to go back.
Right. It is, and if there are people that are on the fence, like out there, that's your deciding factor is that there's trade-offs for it.
There's trade-offs for anything. I mean, there's trade-offs for anything. Wendy says, I like this. I also speak the language of numbers. Words escape me.
That's good. That's good. Because when it comes to business, numbers talk. When you're talking to your customers, when you start bringing up the numbers and they're like, why is that? Where does that cost coming from? So you have to learn how to speak their language so you can translate as to your fee, what your fee is for.
Well, and if you don't speak the language of numbers like me, you hire someone who does. You can make sure you're doing the numbers right. But the one thing that I did want to talk about, because this is something that I think you should do, and I want to know what you think about it. I've mentioned it to you before, so I'm going to throw it out there just because we're, live and what the heck.
Oh, what the heck.
My personal theory about your business, which why I have a theory about your business is a whole separate thing, but is that you do such amazing work. I feel like you could be like one of those famous celebrity, one-of-a-kind costume designer people. And I'm sorry, I have to itch my nose. I'm not.
That's okay. Put your mask on.
Put my mask on. Yeah. But you seem to do, I mean, you do your one-of-a-kind projects, but you also do like basic, just keep the doors open kind of embroidery work. Cause I get that that has to be, but my feeling is I wanted like write and design you this really amazing website, you know, Carolyn, embroiderer to the stars. And I guess where I'm going with this is, how do you know when you do something custom, like the bride chairs that you did, or if you do a custom coat for somebody, or, you know, the bee dress or any, how the heck do you know what to charge for that? How do you figure out what it costs? How? How?
Well, and that's the hard part. The hardest part, you know, the average coat is 160 to 250. And I thought at first, I thought, listen, I live in a small town, and once a year we have a 1-day festival, and I put up my tent and I put my coats in there and I put my dresses in there. And I thought, you know, who's going to buy these, you know, crazy expensive coats and dresses? And the first year that I was there, I sold 4 coats and 3 dresses.
There you go.
And they were just like, and the lady says, well, how much do you want for that? And I said, well, it was a red coat. And I said, that one's $250. And she goes, oh, okay. Would you take a check? And I'm like, well, where do you live? And she's like, down the block. I'm like, well, I'm not going to know where. Yeah. So I have, you know, it's a limited audience. I had an Etsy page, and I had all my coats on there, and they just kind of sat. And I'm sure it's lack of promotion on my end because of the fact that it's my art. I'm not looking at it as my my living. I guess I need to reinterpret that and say this is what I do for a living.
Well, or sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but this just occurred to me. Is it more that you're worried about if you commodify it, then it won't be fun anymore? Like if it becomes a product, like a Carolyn Cagle original kind of thing, does that take the art out of it maybe? Or
maybe, you know, maybe it's the classic artist angst.
Okay, you know, fair enough.
You put something out there, like today I wore the crazy pink coat because it's gloomy out.
Right.
And so I wore my gypsy pink coat today. And when I went to the dentist, and when I walked in the offices, it was like, what I like to see is the people's reactions to them. And then I carry cards in my pocket, and they're like, "Oh my God, I love that!" And I said, "Here's my card. This is what I do." And so I do have a couple of customers, Barb, who gets a coat from me every year. You know, she usually comes and says, she picks out something that I might have that's blank and says, "Oh, I love this," and then she'll come do it. I would love to do more. I would love to find a really nice gift shop to have them in. My sister did well in Arizona. She had them, but you know, it's a market for people that have they have the funds to spend on it. But
right, that's what I'm going to say. It's definitely a custom experience. And the thing is, the market is out there for people who are willing to pay for something that's custom and pay heavily for something that's custom. Right. But yes, you have to reach them, which would be probably, investment in a website and all that kind of stuff. So
I do have my website, but it's just I've never been able to pinpoint my website because I think that what happens is it's because it's stricknessembroidery.com. And I was able to section it out into sections, but I think like in the artist end of it, you know, you're always kind of, sometimes I fall back on you know, I need to collect my thoughts and I don't want to appear like I'm all over the place, you know?
Right.
And like my friends always say, Carolyn, stop doing widget work. Just do the coats. Please just stop doing widget work. Just do the coats. And I'm like, well, sure, I have 100 of them here. My friend Carter, who was the furniture designer, I'm always like pushing him because I would love to do, like I told you before, coats, couches and coats. He would
couches and
coats, and I would do coats. Right, exactly.
Well, I guess because I love your work so much, and it's like you say, you can see when you look at an item, you can see what it should be. When I look at what you do, I'm like, I can totally see this website, and it's all fancy, and we
will talk after this.
And you charge through the nose for everything. You get it, you know.
I right before COVID started, I had a band out in California that wanted some, and I had put it on the Women in Garment. This is what they requested. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that for you. But after this happened, you know, they don't have gigs and whatever. So and hopefully they're still waiting in the wings.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, things can happen. But right. I just think it's really the whole idea of what you do just really interests me because it is so unique and each piece is unique. I mean, even when you do like, okay, so say your media is coats. Yeah. Every coat is different. It's not like you go, okay, I'm going to make a coat and it's always going to have rhinestones and it's always going to be flowers and it's always going to, everything is
its own entity.
Everything is its own entity. And I think that's, to me, that's got to be harder to sell in a way, but probably more gratifying to sell in a way. So am I right about that or no?
Yes, because I cannot reproduce the same thing ever. If I have a coat right. and I sold it and somebody says to me, can you do that again? I can say I can do it again, but it'll never be exactly the same. I just can't do it again. I spent so many years making the mitten widgets. And it's just like, that's what's happening right now with face masks. It's a widget for me. I will make them, but, you know, and it's not where I should be spending my time. I would rather be working on coats. But right now I'm focused on that damn crappy chair that was on my desk.
Well, I like what you said, and I want to circle back to it a little bit because I think it's interesting. You said, I can't do the same thing twice. Now, is that because you don't know how to, or because it's a choice that you don't want to do the same thing twice?
It's a combination of two, but okay. I would say it's 25-75. 25% of it is I can do it, and 75% of it says when I'm in the process of making a coat or creating anything, I'm also in the process in my head of reinventing that wheel. Because once I've done it, I go, I know it would look even better. So it's a proverbial reinventing the wheel for creative people. This is like when people say, why are creatives procrastinators? It's only because we've reinvented it every single time because we're going to fine tune it. Because every time we look at it, it gets better and better and better. And we have to have an end date. So for me, with the coat, once I've created it, it's done, and then it goes out the door, or somebody's wearing it, or I'm wearing it, and I'll see it, and I'll go, you know what would have been so cool? That's what happens to me.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Well, and I think there's a danger when you're a creative. I see it with writers a lot. If they write like the same character in a series.
Yeah.
And the first couple can be really awesome, or the first, 5 or 6. And then after a while, the story becomes, okay, we know all, it's like a fill in the blank story. X thing will happen and then this will happen, and the fun goes out of it. And I think I would guess it's something similar if you're doing work like you're doing. If you were making coats that were very similar all the time, the fun would go out of it after a while. It would be like, the fun is, and I think the fun for you is also in, because I want to bring this up too, because you did that great portrait of Lydia, is finding new media to play in too. Because like you've taken to the sublimation markers like a duck to water. So
I love those. Oh.
I know. And now you're making what, cabana curtains or whatever you're doing, or.
The nature of my being is to use what I have. That was my artist challenge this year. Was I could not purchase anything to create new art. So I bought a whole bunch more of those markers because I already had them, so I didn't feel it was an extra purchase.
I see. Okay.
But So I kind of like pushing the boundaries on that, but I've always been interested as a sewer in creating my own fabric, and these markers came out, and I didn't know you could do all that cool stuff because that webinar that was the other day.
You ladies on Two Regular Guys last week.
Yes. Oh my God. I almost had a heart attack trying to come with the ideas that were coming in my head. I was like, stop, I gotta get those. So I immediately ordered them. So I've got them. But it was like, I'm trying to figure out how to do my own fabric with my own designs.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had never, I was kind of delighted to see that they had never seen that done. So I had made a scarf, just seeing how it worked. And it turned out kind of cool. And I thought, okay, now this process I'm going to incorporate on this chair, and you'll see it all come together when I'm done with it. But I want to explore those more as to how they could be used in art and textile creations. Basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, your sister is an artist in Arizona, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So the whole kind of family has an arty kind of bent to you.
Yes.
So how much of that was it nurtured in your childhood that, like you said, you had to pull the threads or whatever, but was that encouraged when you were kids, or did you all just naturally have that tendency?
No. My mom is a painter, and she did landscapes, and then she did all her own drawings. So she practiced her art every day. And each one of us, she said, because we all, at one point we all said, "Oh, I want to be an artist." And like I said, my brother Keith has an art degree, and my sister is, I think she has somewhere close to that in a degree. But we're all self-taught also. Mm-hmm. But we were exposed to it continuously. It was a daily thing that we were exposed to. It was art, and and my mom is a three-dimensional thinker, also a visualizer. My dad was a builder all his life. He could build anything. He made me boats. He made me
oh my goodness,
all kinds of things. He made us all kinds of things. He was a builder. So we were also taught to use what you have. There was no going out and just buying something for the sake of buying it. If you couldn't create it, somehow, then you would venture off on it. So mm-hmm. We were continuously exposed to paints and crayons and paper dolls and dioramas. That was huge. My mom would give us
my Lord.
You'd take a shoebox, and your mom would go, "Here's your shoebox," and then you'd turn it into a little room, and we'd make furniture and curtains, everything.
Oh, I used to hate doing those for school because I was like, no. Can I write a story about it? Because I could do that.
No, that was a toy for us.
Well, see, this whole thing kind of fascinates me a little bit because my grandmother was a painter. Mm-hmm. My mother did embroidery and a lot of craft stuff. Totally skipped me. I have no ability for that at all, and really no interest in it. Yeah. And then my niece is a pretty good artist, so it's like it's just weird to me how sometimes that is there and sometimes it isn't.
Yeah, but it doesn't come till you don't recognize the gifts until later on. Because when we're younger, as a typesetter, it was something that it was a job and I did. And then when I went into the printing industry, then you're doing graphics and people bring it and you start, opening up to it and seeing it. But I think it all depends. My kids, I know they're creative, but they do nothing on the art spectrum. Nothing. They bring it to me and they go, mm-hmm. So
yeah, not interested.
Yeah, but they love the art that I do for them that are of their kids and their supporters.
Oh yeah, you've done some gorgeous stuff for Astrid and Gracie. So
yeah. So it's all, I don't know. I think it's an exposure. I think it's all exposure.
Yeah, I think that's true partly, and some of it is. I think Sandy Jo has an interesting comment here. She says, "Bingo, creatives need to be having fun in what we are doing, or our vision goes elsewhere."
Exactly.
And I think that's very true, that if you're not enjoying it, then you end up just kind of drifting off somewhere and
Yeah, and I think that in a way too, we really love to see the gratification of something because it's scary when you created something and you're handing it over.
Oh
You're,
yeah.
you're waiting for that moment, the either "Oh, I love it or the not love
Or, oh,
it.
this is great. Yay.
Yeah, you're really, I don't have that effort, but I think we enjoy. I think that's a lot of times where the cost factor comes in because if we go back to what it costs to create something, sometimes it's like it might have taken me 6 hours to get the effect that I wanted to have that made me personally thrilled with having it show up or stitch out or
Okay.
color. How can I, through my learning process, I had a hard time translating that 6 hours to the customer, and saying this took me 6 hours, and they don't really because I first of all I found that too, and when I say that if I say to somebody I was like, oh, I enjoyed doing this, it took me like 48 hours, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, because they don't see that as something that I enjoy doing. They see it as, oh, 48 hours, $56 an hour, right? So
Right.
so sometimes I skip out on a lot of that. Now, if you give me the coats to the stars, it's now give a rat's ass if it took me 6 hours. I'm getting charged for it because that's like it's all relative.
Well, I think that's, and I mean, God, this is the wrong time to start talking about this because we're coming up on an hour, but I think that's something that is kind of a tension a little bit is, if you have the ability to create something that's one of a kind and really kind of unique and wonderful, you should get paid a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
money for doing it because you're creating something that not everyone could make.
right.
But at the same time, you have to find the customer base that is willing to splash out that kind of money, which is possible. We'll talk. We can
Yeah,
we
no,
can figure this
I
out.
do, I do, I do want to emphasize though, when people come to my shop and they start out with a project, I don't care what it is. I immediately start out, and it might be on the low end, it might be on the high end. I don't know. I immediately say everything starts at $200, and then we work from there because I've narrowed it down to how much time it takes me to do something, and everything starts out at that. Now the jobs that come back with were just repeat work, but everything starts off at my base is $200, and then we go from there.
Right.
And sometimes I've had jobs that all sorts, big jobs, little jobs, whatever. But it's just a fact, and the customer that I end up with because of the referrals, usually not an issue. Now maybe I should do 500.
Right.
We don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to set your price at what makes sense for you in
Right.
terms of your area too. I mean, if you were living in LA, you'd probably be charging a lot more, but you live in Stacy, so
But
that makes a difference too.
it does make a difference. But actually, when like I was surprised with how many people were shelling out for not shelling out, but purchasing
Right.
coats, $250, which I thought was great. So
Right.
so
Yeah, it
it's
definitely makes sense.
it's
I'm sorry?
always a process. It's always something that everyone struggles with. I think we all struggle with it. But I really would like people to just say it with confidence and put it out there. And if if it's something that they're not willing to do, then don't.
Well, that's the thing that I think is really interesting is, and this is a whole nother podcast, and I totally realize this, but the number of people that have told me since I said, I'm going to do this by myself, and they're like, well, you have to do this thing. You must do this thing. You must offer consulting services. You must offer coaching services. And I'm like, why? If that's not what I want to do, why would I do that? Because the whole point of having my own thing is doing stuff that I like.
Right. The
So,
things that I don't like doing, the things that I don't want to do, always end up costing me so much more money because it's in
yeah,
time. I don't get
yeah.
to work on my art, and I don't get a. It's not that I put out an inferior project. It's something that I don't love.
Right. And I mean, I understand that everybody that's telling me this stuff is being very well-meaning, but it's like, no, I know the things that I think I'm good at, and I know how I want things to look. And it may not be the way that you guys would do it, but I'm not you. So, and I think that's also something that happens too. We're going to go a little bonus time here, people, just so you know. Not surprising. But I want to cover this last point because I think it is important. One of the things that I have noticed is that there are a lot of people, and some men, some women, so it is a proportion of both, who feel like they can tell me what I should be doing. And it feels a lot like it's because I'm female. I don't get the same sense that if I were a man, they'd be going, you should be doing this.
No, I don't think so. I think this is my personal feeling. I think personally that when anyone is a professional at what they do, and then they tell you that you should be doing this, I think that they're putting it across. Men just happen to do it more, whereas women keep it in their head.
Maybe that might be true. That might, yeah. And I mean, and I also want to definitely put out there that everyone who has offered me advice has been very well-meaning. They've been trying to help me, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it a lot. But it's just been a very interesting experience to me because I feel like a lot of people have been maybe putting their experiences, which I guess is really all you can do, is, they're going, well, this is what I experienced, and so I think you should do what I did. I get that.
We also have the problem, Christine, is that in our industry, there's not a lot of women in it. So when we're looking for advice, I mean, there's a lot of women in it, but when we're looking for advice, or if you're starting to step yourself out there, and the people that have been in the face of everybody has been all these guys.
Well, and yeah, I think that's true too. And that's one of the things that, Women in Garment Decoration was created for, was to hopefully start encouraging more women to step out there and start talking about their experiences and being mentors and guides to women who were just starting out. Right. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of permutations to this. It's just been a really interesting experience for me to have people go, I think you should do, or you must do this. Oh, and yeah, I'm like, I don't must do anything. I mean, it's kind of, and I mean, a lot of the advice has been really, really helpful, even if it's not something that I particularly wanted to do. But it's, there have been, everybody I've talked to has given me a nugget, at least, that I've walked away with and gone, yeah, that's important. I need to. But I find it interesting that the people I've identified with more are the women business owners I've talked to, which I guess makes sense.
Yeah, but you're putting yourself in a position right now, which is awesome, to be the awesome to be that person to give the advice to other women now. So they're not staring down the gauntlet of, 5 guys in bowling shirts going, well, you gotta do this now,
I don't know any guys who wear bowling shirts, but okay.
Well, it's a polo nowadays. It's a polo. It's a golf polo.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's just interesting to me. I mean, the number of people in the industry, male and female, who have reached out to me and said, if you want to talk, if you have questions, if I can help you in any way, let me know, has been amazing. So I think this is a wonderful industry for that. And I also want to throw in this comment from Wendy, which goes back to something we were talking about earlier, but it's a good comment. I read a book once that said, follow what comes easy and natural to you. This is what your superpower is. And if you embrace it, you will be unstoppable. I think that's true in a lot of ways. I mean, it's, I've seen before several times people saying, find the thing you love and then figure out how to make money doing it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I've been a writer since I wrote my first story when I was 6, and it was about a taco. And don't ask me why, but when my mother died, my stepfather gave me a bunch of her things, and she actually has that story. So I have it now.
Oh, nice.
And I illustrated it too, which totally taught me that I'm not an artist, but it was a pretty good story for a 6-year-old. So, but I mean, I knew from a really early age that writing was what I wanted to do. And there were a number of people over the years who said writers don't make any money, writers never, you're going to end up starving somewhere. I figured out a way to make it work for me.
Well, that goes back to what my mother said to each and every one of us. She said, if you want to be an artist, that's great. But you need to find what you need to do to support yourself to be that artist.
Yes, so, exactly.
And she proved every day that her artistic abilities made her money. And each one of us have made some sort of living, not some sort of, but made a living off of our talents and knowledge in the background of art. So,
yeah. Well, and that's very true. You have to, the image of the artist starving in the garret somewhere and suffering for their art is a lot of times because they aren't willing to. I mean, am I going to tell you that every article that I've ever written for Printwear or what I wrote for Stitches or what was like the most fun writing I've ever done? Probably not all of it, but it let me do what it supported what I loved doing. Yeah. And I mean, I have a big teacher gene too. So, so anyway, we could go on for probably another hour, but these poor people have stuff to do. And so I'm going to say thank you. Is there any last little nugget of wisdom? Do you want to remind everyone to keep pushing the boundaries, Carolyn?
Yes. Yes. I mean, if you can hoop it, you can embroider it. If you can, it's like, yes, just look at everything as a possibility rather than a roadblock. And
that's a good advice.
Yeah. And if anybody needs any help with anything, text me, email me, and I'll
put up again. There's her Facebook page. You can message her. So, all right. Thank you, Carolyn. I really, really appreciate this. It's been a great conversation. I'm going to pop you out and talk to everybody for just a minute.
Okay. Goodbye,
thank you
everybody.
so much. Bye. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. That was amazing. And I think we learned a lot about creativity today. Carolyn is the best. And she's also the other admin at our group here, which I'm going to pop up one more time. Women in Garment Decoration. We're a good group. We're a lot of supportive women over there, so you should stop by and see us. You should also like the Women in Business podcast page. And if you want to see the show notes and all the links and everything from this show, you can go to christineshreve.com and look at the Women in Business menu tab, and that should be up in the next few days. And also all these podcasts will be posted on my YouTube page, which I don't have a link to right now, but I will put it up on the christineshreve.com website, and you can see it there. And I hope you will join me next week, the 20th, for a conversation with Tanya Deutscher from the Visual Identity Vault. We are going to talk about growing your business during a crisis, not only a virus, but she had some stuff happen in her life personally that I want to talk about with her. And I think it's going to be a really good conversation. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to Carolyn, and I'll talk to you next week.